Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound, deeply human story of courage, sacrifice, and just sheer determination. We're going back to the spring of 1836, where a small mission fortress in Texas did something that completely defied all military logic. So we aren't just going to rattle off the tactics of war today, we are exploring how a guaranteed, incredibly bloody defeat somehow managed to become an unforgettable legend.
Okay, let's dive right into this central paradox because it's a fascinating question, isn't it? We are looking at a story of how an absolute crushing military defeat, literally a total wipeout, somehow laid the psychological groundwork that ended up securing Texas's independence. It really makes no sense on paper. To understand how a massacre becomes a rallying cry, we need to look at exactly who was there, what they faced, and the impossible choices they made when the end was staring them right in the face.
Section 1. Trouble in Texas. The Brewing Storm.
To set the stage, let's wind the clock back a bit. Late 1835. Tensions are boiling over between settlers and the Mexican government, and Texan rebels managed to capture San Antonio de Bayar. Right in the center of town stood this old Spanish mission, the Alamo. Now, they occupied it to lock down the region, but Mexican President Antonio López de Santa Anna wasn't having it. He marched a massive army north to completely crush this breakaway attempt. By February 1836, he arrived, and, well, by March 6th, the fateful assault began.
Moving on to Section 2, the overwhelming odds. The siege begins.
As Santa Anna's forces tightened their grip, the defenders inside the Alamo faced a truly terrifying reality. I mean, just think about these numbers for a second. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath situation. Inside the walls, you got fewer than 200 men. Outside, well over 4,000 highly trained Mexican soldiers surrounding them. They were completely boxed in, and every single man inside knew exactly what those numbers meant. There was no math that ended well for them.
And the day-to-day reality inside those weak, crumbling walls was just a grim, exhausting nightmare. Day after day, Mexican artillery constantly bombarded the fort. Just bone-rattling cannon fire echoing across the Texas landscape. The defenders shot back when they could, but food was incredibly scarce, and they had to meticulously conserve every single musket ball and powder charge. Plus, every waking moment was spent under the suffocating heavy dread that, today might be the day the final assault actually begins.
Knowing how extreme the danger was, the fort's young commander, William B. Travis, sent out these desperate, pleading messages asking for reinforcements. He writes this incredibly famous letter, arguably one of the most famous in American history, saying, "I shall never surrender or retreat." Despite the overwhelming dread, he defiantly refused to give up the mission, begging Texans and Americans to come to their aid. Now, a handful of volunteers did miraculously manage to sneak through enemy lines, but it just wasn't anywhere near enough to change the bleak reality of their situation.
So as the siege drags on and things look completely hopeless, a legendary moment allegedly takes place. The story goes that Travis gathered his exhausted men, pulled out his sword, and literally drew a line in the dirt. He asked anyone who was willing to stay and fight to the absolute death to step across it. Now, historians still debate whether this exact event happened exactly like that. But actually, scratch that. Whether it's literal fact or just a myth, the legend itself hits the nail on the head. It perfectly symbolizes their unwavering commitment. They knew defeat was coming, and they decided to stand their ground anyway.
Section 3. The Final Assault. The 90-minute slaughter.
That agonizing wait finally broke in the pitch-black darkness right before dawn on March 6th. The eerie silence was just shattered. Bugles blaring, drums echoing in the dark. Thousands of Mexican soldiers advanced from multiple directions all at once. The Texan defenders actually inflicted really heavy casualties on those first waves, but the attackers just kept coming, eventually pouring right over the walls. What followed was pure, chaotic, desperate hand-to-hand combat in the courtyards, with thick gunpowder smoke totally choking the air.
When you zoom in on who was actually in there, the reality of the battle is just brutal. These guys fought until they physically couldn't fight anymore. William Travis was actually among the very first defenders to be killed. James Bowie, who was famous across the frontier for his toughness, was actually super sick and confined to his bed, but reportedly fought off enemy soldiers right out of his sickbed as they breached his room. And Davy Crockett, the famous frontiersman whose arrival had boosted everyone's morale earlier, well, his exact final moments are a bit of a mystery, but his bravery that morning absolutely cemented his place as an American legend.
Which brings us to Section 4, Victory in Defeat, a Legacy of Defiance.
Within just a few hours, the physical battle was completely over.
The courtyard went silent, and nearly all of the Alamo's defenders were dead. Santa Anna claimed his military victory, sure, but look at the cost. It was massive. The Mexican forces suffered hundreds of casualties during that short assault. This tiny, starving force of fewer than 200 men had managed to inflict severe, undeniable damage on a massive professional army.
And here is the real game changer of the entire revolution. You see, this total wipeout of the defenders shocked the settlers. But instead of crushing the rebellion like Santa Anna had planned, it totally backfired. It electrified Texas. The news spread like wildfire, and this rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo," echoed across the whole region. It sparked this massive surge of furious new volunteers who were suddenly ready to fight.
The defenders at the Alamo didn't live to see it, but their sacrifice directly fueled the explosive endgame of the war. Just weeks later, completely energized by the tragedy at the Alamo, Texan forces under Sam Houston launched this wild surprise attack against Santa Anna's army at the Battle of San Jacinto. And get this, the battle lasted only minutes. Santa Anna's forces were completely overwhelmed. The Mexican leader himself was captured. And just like that, Texas officially secured its independence. Today, millions of people travel down to the Alamo every single year to learn about those who gave their lives there. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought to chew on. History is so rarely just about who wins the physical battle on a given day. It's really about the enduring legends forged by those who choose to stand against the odds, even when defeat is an absolute certainty. How does knowing the desperate, grim reality of what they face change how you view their sacrifice? Thanks so much for joining me today, and as always, keep questioning the history behind the legends.